My name is Sadie Rockliffe. I am a PhD researcher at the University of Brighton. I am also in my first year, and my research stems on accessibility within blue spaces, in particular looking at the significances this can have to help for societal transformation. I'm going to be looking at, in particular, I'm going to be sharing sort of the research process, focusing on people with visual impairments and their lived experiences engaging with blue spaces. I hope with this research that we can really get down to the significance of lived experiences and telling disabled stories, which is, as we've already heard, absolutely crucial for research findings and implementing policy. So what is my research about? As you may know, in recent years there's been a huge growing interest in the relationship between blue spaces, and by blue spaces I mean aquatic environment, oceans, rivers, lakes, and human well-being. Recognised not only now as recreational areas, blue spaces are also significant therapeutic landscapes for both your spiritual, your physical and your mental rejuvenation. Most importantly now, it's widely socially prescribed as a way for people to deal with everyday life tasks, and people are swimming and taking to blue spaces to be able to get through the day. However, there remains a huge critical gap in understanding the experiences of marginalised voices, and particularly for me it's people with visual impairments. This is actually critical at the moment as well. Lots of research has started to indicate that people with a visual impairment or blindness are at greater than average risk of not being able to access adequate recreation and exercise facilities, experience very heavy social isolation, or rely disproportionately on their relatives to be able to engage with many leisure facilities. So hopefully, by being able to increase accessibility of blue spaces, we can really look, as I mentioned, about societal transformation by increasing not only social inclusion, but also improving place attachments, and with that, environmental stewardship and custodianship. So with this, my research hopes to really delve into the nuanced experiences of individuals with visual impairments in relation to blue spaces. What I want to do is be able to open up new avenues of understanding ourselves in relation to non-human nature, so we can better engage with a full maze of embodied human diversity that shapes our responses to non-human nature and from non-human nature. So my research seeks to address this critical research gap, and with particular focus on outdoor swimming. So outdoor swimming is very seen as currently displays very normative qualities around social class, around race and around ableness. So with this research we really need to increase that breadth and inclusivity of engaging with blue spaces as a social practice. And we really seriously need to expand on the limited blue space research that focuses and tells disabled stories. So this research is very timely at the moment. Firstly, we need to obviously look at the significant lack of research that discusses and focuses on the lived experiences of individuals with visual impairment. There's some researchers doing some wonderful things on green spaces or nature connectedness, so we really want to look at outdoor swimming and how visual impaired people have experiences with that. And we also want to increase this research that comes specifically after COVID, where we have seen existing mental health conditions really exasperated. This research actually came from two areas. There was a symposium that went on, and a professional outdoor swimmer who was completely blind came and gave her experiences about accessing the ocean as opposed to environments like the lakes and rivers or canals, where potentially the landscape doesn't change so much. Oceans and coastlines dramatically change due to environmental degradation, due to changes to climate change, extreme weather, and the real difficulties in being able to access that space when these environments are constantly changing. It was very emotional, and there's also a Facebook group which I recommend if you're able to join, and you're free. It offers the ability to be able to link up with people with a vision impairment who want to go swimming. And more often than not, a lot of these as well started with "I hate to ask but" within the post, which just blew my mind, because that's literally what the group had been set up to be able to do. It was there for like-minded people to be able to support each other to be able to go swimming. So it's really about being able to understand lived experiences, being able to work to have this interdependence rather than focusing on independence. See, I caution against this notion of prescribed healthy dose of nature. I love nature, I get out as much as possible, but it does place undue responsibility on individuals and overlook structural inequalities in access. Not everyone can obviously easily access blue spaces, despite the benefit. Simply telling people to go out and get some engagement with water doesn't solve the problem. Many natural-based settings, as well as man-made structures, are heavily embedded with ableism, making them inaccessible to individuals with disabilities, as Chantal mentioned with green spaces. It may be in the form of man-made structures like directional signs. It could be the accessible transport, and it could be pathways and safety updates. In particular, here I've got some signs here, lots of signs that don't include braille. There's no point having these big flags that say no swimming if actually people can't see them, and they just generally would go in that particular area swimming or engaging in the blue space anyway. The thing is, we don't know a lot about the lived experiences of people with visual impairments accessing the sea. There's not enough research out there, so we really need to start doing more research to being able to get a better understanding of lived experiences, and in particular lived experiences for well-being as well. Well-being should be seen as a emergent quality of shifting relationships involving both human and non-human elements. So we need to advocate for a positive identity politics that recognises the diversity of disability. We want to counter the de-evaluation of disability as a damage of the sea, and look at this plurality of non-human nature experiences. So when you're conducting research like this, it's heavily interdisciplinary. We focus on, we've got the social sciences and sports sciences. It's very particular to consider new materialism and how different structures are going to affect lived experiences with your surroundings. And we need to focus on the different areas of health sciences, human geography, and critical disability studies. Now I've thrown this little one in here. Obviously, please don't feel free to read it all, but I think it's super important to be able to see the diverse ways that people are, essentially. And these change continuously during different life stages, during different space and time that you might occupy it as well. So it really needs to be taken into account that, of course, you can get these lived experiences. They're going to change individually by everybody and by the same person throughout their life. So it's super important to be able to think about things like that when you're conducting research, gaining the lived experiences of people. And it brings about the question of how do you co-develop? How can you co-create effectively where you're not going to have one agent who's going to benefit more than others? And creative outputs can make a big difference depending on who then gets that output, who can then have these exhibitions and things. But even to be able to, from the very start, to simply ask what questions to ask. For this particular study, we're going to begin with focus groups with relevant stakeholders who are visually impaired as well, and either work within or part of science support organisations. And we're going to be discussing with them what questions do we need to ask, what language do we need to ask, how can that then inform surveys, and then some more personal interviews, go-along interviews. We're going to try some swim-along interviews as well. So what we intend to do with all of this information, Well, initially, with lots of volunteering work that's been going on, we've focused, it's found that actually a lot of the focus is on just being able to get to the environment that you want to go to, that particular blue space. Once you're there, you know, you're equal, you're the same as everybody else. How many people will get into the water and shut their eyes? It's not about what you can see, it's about having that embodied experience. So it's super important to be able to focus on the accessibility and the well-being. We're going to look at producing a national map. Ironically, this is actually of the sewage around the coast. But as an example, we want to be able to show the areas where people with vision impairments can actually access those environments. We're going to do that through national surveys that are going to go out. We're going to look at their own personal identity in terms of their ages and their backgrounds, etc., and what may be going on in their life at the time, and then we can correctly inform why is that particular environment working, why is that accessible, what makes it accessible, what areas aren't accessible, and hopefully then we can identify all these barriers and facilitators as well that really help and support people getting into these blue spaces for their well-being. Hopefully then we can make these blue space environments more inclusive and then help with the social transformation, not just with social inclusion, but also with environmental stewardship through place attachments and your sense of well-being. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sadie.